Cheaters of Reddit, tell us why you are currently cheating on your SO? Story 1. Okay, I'll tell my story. I was involved with Denise for 9 years. She would pick fights seemingly any time I was in a good mood, and frequently ruined important things for me, like my graduation party from college, by getting angry. Sometimes because I was ignoring her, and other times because I wouldn't leave her alone. I loved her and tried to be everything for her even though we fought all the time, because that's what I thought relationships were all about. Work, right? But after we got married, she became genuinely abusive towards me. Some of my favorite Denise one-liners were, "You're worthless, you're never there for me. If we have kids, you probably won't even love them. I don't even want to have your kids." Our bedroom was dead. I asked her to go to counseling 3 different times during our relationship, but she refused because we don't need it. Great. It got to the point that I was afraid to interact with her in any way. It was literally work to workout to dinner to bed. Eventually, I started to get really depressed and ended up talking to a friend of several years, Jamie. She was nice to me, not judgmental, and seemed to really care about me and how I felt. We started spending more time together and it eventually started to grow into an emotional affair. Eventually, we fell for each other, then Denise and I separated and divorced, ironically after she asked me when we were going to start having kids. Of course, Denise found out, they always do. Obviously, she was very hurt and angry, but she ended up asking me basically, why Jamie and not me? To which I replied, I can trust her with my emotions. She doesn't hurt me. We stayed up all night, talked a lot, hugged a lot, cried a lot, apologized to each other and divorced uncontested. Denise and I are still friends and Jamie and I are happily married. Reply. The fuck would you marry Denise? OP reply. Great question. My only answer was that I was young and stupid. In Dr. Jekyll mode, she was a wonderful girl. Very sweet and affectionate, and that's the person that I loved. Still do. But in Mr. Hyde mode, she became the most genuinely hateful person I've ever met. Early on, when Mr. Hyde appeared infrequently, I honestly thought that that's what marriage was like, based on a lot of my friends' relationships. Later on, when things got really bad, Dr. Jekyll almost completely disappeared. I didn't want to just bail on my marriage, so I tried to really hard to work it out, but obviously that wasn't reciprocated. Reply 2. I don't think enough people appreciate this response, and the maturity that comes with it. Story 2. I cheated when I was younger and the answer is simple. Instant gratification. I knew it was wrong but it didn't matter. My mindset was, why wait to get what you want later? I can get it now and later. I felt terrible about it and I would never do it again. Reply. In the same boat. I don't know if respect is the right word, but it's the first that comes to mind. I felt like I was better than my SO, like I deserved more. Granted, I was younger and had delusions of grandeur, etc. But for a while, it was a really big concern of mine. Will I ever be enough of a man to actually be happy with what I've got? Still a little early to tell, but I've been with the same wonderful lady for 2.5 years and never once had an impulse to be unfaithful. Story 3. I'm glad someone asked, because I've felt like getting this off my chest for some time now, but there's no one I can tell. I'm not currently cheating. This ended about 2 years ago. I was lucky that it ended before I ruined a lot of lives. I had been married for close to 15 years and had 4 kids when I met her. She was a friend's girlfriend, and the 4 of us, him and her, my wife and I, had all been playing WoW together for about a year when we started hanging out in person. She and I hit it off immediately and we both felt like we were appreciated in a way that didn't exist in our primary relationships. We started talking online, outside of the game. We talked about what we thought was missing from our relationships, and for about a month or 2 it was just getting to know each other. Up till this moment in my life I always believed that cheaters were the worst form of filth. I had friends in the past who had cheated on their wives and girlfriends and they disgusted me. But at this moment I was convinced that the only way for me to be happy was to be with this girl. So I asked her if she'd meet me for a drink someday. We met a few days later and had a drink. During the course of that meeting I felt myself falling for her. I felt like I would do anything she asked me to. I felt like I was in love in a way that I had never felt before. As we were leaving I kissed her. We texted over that weekend and it became apparent that we both wanted it to become physical. Within a week, it was. I was convinced that I needed to leave my wife and family and be with her. She was 9 years younger than me, and I thought I loved her. I was lying to myself, but I was so close to the situation that I didn't even see it. I couldn't see it. I was dumb. I almost lost my family because I was blinded and confused. Leaving would have been the worst mistake of my life, and I'm convinced it would have destroyed lives. We saw each other for over a year, though usually only once or twice a month. The ending was complicated, but the end result is that I was lucky to get out with my family intact. I was weak, and I went after what was new and exciting instead of putting all that energy into fixing what was wrong with my marriage. I don't recommend it. Reply. You better be careful. I hear there is a new expansion out. Story 4. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. We dated for 3 years in college, and I never strayed. I hardly even looked at another girl. We lived together for the last 2 years of college. And then we both graduated and moved home. Suddenly we were a long-distance relationship. Instead of seeing her every night, I'd see her maybe once a month. At first it wasn't that bad. But then she stopped texting me back, or returning my calls. We talked on the phone maybe once a week and that was it. The girl who had been my life, my companion, was becoming a stranger. And when I did get to see her, I didn't even feel like a part of her life. She barely touched me, and I was lucky if we slept together once a month. When we did fuck, it felt like going through the motions. She wasn't present, she didn't initiate. It was passionless, robotic. She would text me to tell me she was going out with ex-boyfriends for drinks, but not to worry about it. They were just friends now. And she'd sleep over at her male friends' houses, but again, they were just friends. I don't know if she cheated on me. And I don't want to know. But then the girl from the apartment next door started coming around. She laughed at my jokes. She told me how much she liked being around me. She would call to check up on me. She made me feel appreciated. One night we had drinks together and I slipped. I never told my girlfriend. And we never broke up. A year later we're still together in a passionless long-distance relationship. That's my story. Reply. Damn dude. Sounds like you should end this relationship. Reply 2. I think it might be time to let her go, man. It's clearly not working out. What's stopping you? You found a girl who is more fitting of you at this point, and let's be brutally honest, your college girl isn't not banging other dudes. Best of luck. Story 5. We were on a break. Reply. I've always been of the theory that, I want a break, is more of, hey, I have someone lined up I want to fuck, and if that doesn't work out, then I'll come back. Maybe. I know this is referencing a show, but still, I don't understand the need for a break, if it's not the above case. Reply. I was in an abusive relationship, as well, when I cheated. After years of being torn down and told how worthless and unlovable I was on a daily basis, someone liked me and that affection and validation felt incredible. I'd already spent years trying to fix the relationship, but it takes two to do so. I broke it off with the boyfriend after a few months of cheating when I realized his abuse and the pain he'd caused had pushed me so far away that I didn't love him anymore. If I hadn't cheated, I'd likely still be in that relationship trying to make it work as he continued to tear me down. Since then, I've been in a good relationship with a new guy, not the one I cheated with, and just got married. Not once has it crossed my mind to cheat, and I'm now more aware of myself and my feelings to know the warning signs. If things hit the shitter this time, I'll be aware enough to realize what's going on and, if the relationship's unfixable, break it off before I cheat. But as I said, I'm not worried about cheating. I have a good guy and a solid relationship. We've been through hell and back and only grown more close. Any issues we've had, we've both stepped forward and worked through, and there were many in the beginning. Communication, willing teamwork, partnership, and dragging each other off for snuggles leave me no desire or need to look anywhere else for love or a need to find balm for a broken heart. Story 7. I'll tell you why I cheated on my last SO. I would never ever cheat on the man I am with now. So I met this guy online, technically on a dating site, but we met from being forum regulars. He was kind of a troll and a lot of people hated him. I was 19 and going through a goth phase, and he was 26 going through a know-it-all phase. We went on a date after talking for a couple weeks and had sex on the first date. 3 months later, we're still dating and I find out that he has a girlfriend, but they're polyamorous and wanted me to be as well. He manipulated me into thinking that if I loved him, I would let him have a 3-way relationship, so I gave in for a couple of months, but brought my discomfort up for discussion. After fighting, the other girl breaks it off, and he moves from North Carolina back to Florida and moves in with me. He originally lived in Florida, but supposedly got a job offer that never panned out, and my roommate, who hated him. He started out manipulative, then it was verbal abuse, and then it became physical abuse. I tried leaving him multiple times, but he wouldn't allow me to, and I was afraid of him. One day, I'm hanging out with a coworker and we ended up kissing. I had feelings for him, and he was my best friend, but the kiss was totally unexpected. I would come into work with bruises, scratches, etc., and everyone would tell me to leave him. I tried telling him that I wanted to leave, but I was too weak and too scared of him. I started having sex with my friend and would hang out with him just to get away from my ex. After a bad argument, I left my ex but left a lot of stuff at our apartment, and after a month, I went back to living there because I couldn't afford to move out. My ex was sleeping with a friend of mine and somehow manipulated me into being in a relationship with them. After a few months, I ended it. One night, I'm on the couch watching TV with the same guy friend I was sleeping with. My ex said he wouldn't be home that night and that he didn't care if I had someone over. Well, he came home, started yelling at me, and then started hitting me. I finally hit back and tried to defend myself, and my friend grabbed some of my clothes, put them in a purse, and put them by the door. He tried to fight my ex, but my ex is much bigger than him, and I pretty much ended the fight because I got an adrenaline rush, picked up a fire extinguisher, and threatened to bash his head open. My ex stopped and my friend and I got the fuck out of there. I was homeless for a few months, but I had supportive friends with couches, and it was worth finally leaving him. The best friend that helped me escape is now my fiancé and we're getting married in 17 days. TLDR cheated on an ex for being abusive because he wouldn't let me leave. Now I'm engaged to the guy the first was cheating on him with. Story 8. I've never cheated but I've been involved with someone who has. In so much as I was the other guy. I never really came to terms with it. As soon as I knew she had a BF I backed off, but there was a pretty major connection there. She starts telling me how she was going to break up with him etc. and I went along with that never meaning to do anything but one thing led to another. Strong feelings and strong booze. Then it just carried on. She did eventually break up with him. They weren't particularly close from what I heard but it still really bothered me. It's a shame really because I came to love her but could never really get over the reality of what we did and I subconsciously sabotaged our relationship such as it was. I think for her the main reasons were being unhappy with the current guy, seeing me as a new exciting and fun alternative and wanting to explore that. Story 9. I've only cheated on one partner, but from what I can tell about my experience and others I know, anyone that cheats and tries to convince themselves it wasn't for selfish reasons is lying to themselves. I cheated for a simple reason. My GF and I were having problems, not justification, just a motivator, and I was moving soon. There was a girl that I had a huge crush on that I was pretty sure did not like me whatsoever in that way. Well, we hung out a few days before I left and it turns out she did like me. Got drunk. Went to her place and for that whole week I was happy in lust with her whenever she was around and drowning in guilt whenever she wasn't. In my mind though, the sexual gratification and fun and happiness that came with her outweighed the guilt and shame, and I had about a week-long fling with her up until I moved away. I never told my so at the time, we have since broken up, but long after I cheated. I never did it again, but honestly if the situation arose again I can't say that I'd have behaved any differently. With my current SO absolutely not, but with others, I'd probably repeat my actions. Reply. This thread now makes me appreciate it when my husband breaks me in half every other morning. Story 10. I wasn't hot. Started dating someone about my level of attractiveness, and were very emotionally attached. But then I started going to the gym a while back and gradually became more attractive, according to others, anyway. Tried getting him to do the same but not much success. So now I'm getting all this attention that I'd never gotten before and there's the urge to explore amongst the more attractive crowd. But I'm not ready to sever the emotional ties yet. There's a glimmer of hope that I still make it work. They say you shouldn't go into a relationship wanting to change someone, but does it apply to fitness? I'm in love with him emotionally, but physically, his body could really use some work. Hinting and nudging produces little to no progress. So, while I'm figuring all this out, I'm basically humping everybody I think is hot. I guess I already know the relationship is doomed. Because at this point, even if he did turn it around and miraculously became hot, I wouldn't be able to go on for long with this history of cheating on him. Reply. Sadly, you feel more attractive on the outside now but the way you're acting is making you a very ugly person on the inside. Karma is a bitch and I would break up with your SO now and give him a chance at happiness with someone who actually wants to care about him. Subscribe.